Florida families and advocacy groups sue to block Don't Say Gay. On Monday, a lawsuit was filed by 7 Florida students and Centerlink against several county school boards, alleging that the new parental rights in education law violates the right to free speech and the due process clause of the 14th Amendment of the Constitution, as well as the amendment's guarantee of equal protection under the law. Winter Park High School student Will Larkins, one of the plaintiffs, said, quote, "Because of the vague language of the law, closed-minded parents are emboldened to become vigilantes to force their beliefs upon other people's children by suing the school district over anything they disagree with," end quote. Governor DeSantis's press secretary, Christine Pushaw, said in an email, quote, "The law says nothing about LGBTQ or any other identity. It is about protecting children and defending parental rights. Floridians don't want their kids to be exposed to subjects like gender transitioning in school, which should be a place for learning basic skills like reading, writing, and math," end quote. The bill amends Florida Statute 1001.42, Section 8, Section C to say, quote, "Classroom instruction by school personnel or third parties on sexual orientation or gender identity may not occur in kindergarten through grade 3 or in a manner that is not age appropriate or developmentally appropriate for students in accordance with the state standards," end quote. Highly offensive. I return to our breaking news observation, stealing John's thunder. This law was for parents to have the choice to protect their children. The filing against our house is the exact opposite of that. Parents cannot make the choice to bring their children to a drag show because it sexualizes them. Why is the governor doing this? Because he can. First and foremost, he can do this. He has the power to do it. He has an overwhelming majority in the House and Senate in Florida, and he thinks he'll win in the courts. This is a very interesting lawsuit because they're going to have great difficulty having it both ways. Equal protection is either equal protection or it is not. And I would be willing to bet, frankly, and I haven't said this before, Don't Say Gay is going to lose in federal court. What do y'all think?
My thing is, I don't understand why superintendents across the country don't come out and talk about the actual curriculum that's being learned in school, because these things that they say that they're teaching kids is not happening in schools. These public schools are so concerned with standardized testing and teaching towards the standardized test that they don't have time to teach some of these other things. And it reminds me of, years ago when they were talking about how, we no longer say the Pledge of Allegiance in school, which was a lie, because every school up to date still says the Pledge of Allegiance in school. They never removed God from it. That was another lie. But we need our educators to come out and start talking about this and talking against these politicians, because what do they know what's happening in schools?
I want to ask all of you specifically, and I know I know we have other points that we want to talk, and I want us to come back to that. But just very quickly, in terms of an observation that I'm hearing a lot now that you just did, a lot of people are saying, why is our rhetoric broadly, let's say right at this moment, you used referencing them multiple times as lying. Very strong word. Once upon a time, we would have never, in a forum like this, doing the news, used a description like they're lying. We wouldn't use that language. Lots of people are saying to me, why is this happening? Why are we starting to use much more incendiary words in the description of the attacks that are taking place on the LGBTQ community? And this is an opportunity for me to ask you, what is angering you to use the word lie?
Because it's flat out just not the truth. And I think that we have to be black and white in our answers. There's no gray area in this, and call people out for the lying that's taking place, because we hold a special responsibility here on this platform. Politicians hold a responsibility. Our educators hold a responsibility as well. And that is to be able to promote the truth, because we're talking to an audience. People are watching this program. People are electing politicians. educators are teaching kids in school, and everyone has some type of, mind that they're molding and trying to convince. And the days of just being able to just flat out just tell everyone anything they want, I feel is over. And I think that we need to call people out on their actions and propagate for the truth.
And I think to your point, facts are facts. We just went through 4 years of a president that had fake news. If I'll tell it to you enough times, you're going to believe it. And the truth here is that why can't they just stand up and say, we've never done this. Here's our curriculum. We've never said these things. We've never taken God out of the Constitution. And when they talk about kids being sexualized in school, we've created a safe space for someone who's questioning. It's called the GSAs after school. It's not in the classroom where this is being discussed. It's being discussed in private to help someone with their self-esteem, help someone from not committing suicide, or help someone to not commit suicide. Those are the things that they're doing that are positive, that are in bettering our students to be full-fledged parts of society and proud of who they are.
If I might take a moment to illustrate just this week to your point, really both of your points. President Trump, he'll always be President Trump.
Former.
Right, it's former, but out of respect, at least I always say President Trump. He went to Washington yesterday, and in the speech that he was going to talk about and whatever, 70% of the speech was on the election, the illicit election, and how it was stolen from him. And one of the phrases that he used over and over again is on the January 6th committee, the hoax of what they were doing. There's no attempt to defend the definition of hoax. There's no attempt to give examples of what was inaccurate of what has been said. There was no opportunity to say, but all of the people that directly worked for me are the ones that have made all of these allegations that I'm now calling a hoax. And he does that so seamlessly to the point that you've just said that so many people listen to that and go in the base, oh, this must be a hoax. Right. But why? The standard of truth is no longer a requirement in our discourse in America.
Right.
And I don't think they're listening when you do tell them the truth, because they're so set in that we believe what he said is to be true, so I'm not going to listen to you and the explanation of the real truth. I mean, the January 6 hearings have been pretty powerful, but if you're not willing to listen to them, then you're going to continue to believe that it's a hoax.
So in the specifics of this example, do we think that this lawsuit's going to be successful? The courts are going to say it's a violation of free speech, equal protection under the law? What do we suppose?
First off, I'm glad to see parents doing this kind of thing because it wasn't done in my day. But, we just saw the overturn of Roe versus Wade. These are the courts we're up against. And I don't think they'll hesitate to throw this out. I hate to be...
to throw it out or to uphold it?
Embrace it.
No, they'll toss
reject.
It. They'll
throw out the lawsuit. Okay.
Okay. Because, and I read the article and I noticed that Palm Beach County was one of the school districts. Was a little bit of a surprise to me, but maybe it shouldn't be. But, I'm sorry, the state is, we live in a blue dot in a very red state. And I think these courts are stacked against us. And, I almost wore my, you're too young to remember this, but, I have the.
That has almost never been said before, by the way.
Oh my God. Wow.
I almost wore my silence equals death button tonight from the ACT UP days back in the 90s, because that's what we're up against now.
It's worth noting that back in 2014, the federal circuit, I forget the number, but the federal circuit court that oversees Florida did uphold the right to marry as it, finally made its way through a different circuit court. So there is that on our side. And I don't know how the appointments have gone in the last 7 or 8 years, but I kind of have the feeling that equal protection is just like a relic that will be talked about in schools, or actually probably banned from being talked about in schools. But I love how this Pushaw chick says, this law says nothing about LGBTQ, but then goes on to talk about transition and gender identity. That just shows the hypocrisy of that dirty, smelly whore. How's that for inflammatory references?
You
So
were
I've
more
got a
polite
question,
than I would.
and I don't know the answer to this. Broward County is like the bluest part of our state,
The bluest county in Florida.
and yet our schools pulled all the books. Was it mandated that they had to pull those books, or did they just do it to get ahead of it? And why did they do that if it's not the case? Why didn't they wait for a lawsuit for someone to come in and say, pull the books?
I had a
You have no
meeting
choice.
last week with the new executive director of the Stonewall Museum. Completely different project than this, but Saturday, a week ago, he's on the cover of the Sun Sentinel and says that the books are saved by offering to take them at the Stonewall Museum. But he says to me specifically, this was initiated by Broward County Schools, not by the state, not by Department of Education. It was a preventative action to remove the books. So the chill has begun. Orlando removing safe stickers. The chill has begun. Will Larkin's message of his freedom of speech and the bullying has begun. That's what has.
But why aren't they pushing back? Why aren't they saying we're going to defy you because we're the bluest state and our parents don't object to these things in the schools? That's the part I don't understand.
Because the school board is David and they're fighting Goliath.
Mm-hmm.
That's why.
And I think there's also a matter of money. You know, because we seriously underfund
you can
schools.
define, with respect, you've repeated the same observation that I've made in a different way. Goliath becomes, I've got the most money too. And if you defy what I say, I will withhold money from you, which is what he did in pandemic over the mask issue and the cruise lines, over the mask issue and the cruise lines, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Goliath flexes his muscle. And until people stand up and say, okay, well, here's my slingshot, get ready, Goliath wins.
And these are all the talking points when he wants to run for president that he can use and say, I did this, I did this, I did this, whether they passed or not. He can say, I fought for, freedom to not wear a mask.
LGBTQ plus news is vital for our community and for the broader world as a whole. We have enough enemies at Fox News. Tucker, Sean, and Laura are loud. We need passionate allies. Happening Out Television Network, Queer News Tonight, and It's Happening Out are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. Our community needs your support. Like this broadcast and subscribe now to ensure the growth of the entire LGBTQ plus community.